Hi.
Hi.
This is my channel.
That's her channel.
I'm back with the next video.
Next video.
This is my mother.
Hi.
Yeah, but I did mention that I was going to bring my mom on so we can talk about kind of some of the things I was talking about in my story time video that I literally posted today.
Yeah.
Kind of like about narcissism, and obviously that was just one story out of the many stories that I have that I could share, I guess. Yeah, so I kind of want to do like this type of podcast thing where we can sit here and talk about our experiences and stuff like that, just like a mother-daughter chat, whatever. And I am gonna bring other guests on, and it's gonna be fun. Well, not really fun because like the topics are kind of heavy, but
it's cool though.
It is a good thing to sit down and like vent about these things.
Literally.
And maybe it'll help someone. I don't know, because
yeah,
I
that's
don't see,
kind of the narrative. Yeah.
When I go to like research about narcissism, there's usually clips of the actual act happening, but not really a lot of educational videos of people who have actually been through it.
What I find is I see like a lot of like information, or there might be videos. I've seen a few videos and I've seen articles, but what I get the most information from are actually the comments on some of the videos, like people who have had the experience and they're like coming from different standpoints. So that's actually where I got most of my information. Yeah,
we'll come up with a research of what narcissism is, and it's a mental condition in which people have an inflated sense of their own importance, a deep need for excessive attention, and I keep pronouncing this word wrong. That one. Admiration, troubled relationships, and a lack of empathy for others. And what I wrote, I was like, in other words, they don't care about anyone but themselves, and they'll destroy whatever. They'll destroy you just to get whatever they want. Because like technically we're dealing with the same person here, so we might be able to relate a lot on certain things. So from my experience, I was extremely depressed, and I spent a lot of time in my room, and I was told that I wasn't going to amount to anything because all I do is lock myself up in a room. And the reasons why I was locking up myself in my own room was because I didn't want to either deal with her, or I was just depressed and I spent majority of my time sleeping. Like, did you ever experience stuff like that where like she would make you feel a certain way and then blame you for feeling that way?
Here's the thing, we had different experiences, because within your experience you were more knowledge, more open, more forward speaking. I was raised in a time where the child wasn't supposed to speak, never really had opinions, and also didn't have the internet to even resource to see what's going on and understand certain things. I taught her certain things through my experiences, and then she started figuring some things out for herself, which actually brought me to a realization of where I got my traits from in terms of just being empathetic to narcissism and narcs in general. And why I gravitated towards them was because I was raised by one. So it all made sense after the fact. So I didn't have the same experiences as you with her because I was her yes man.
Right.
I was that person that said you're right every day, you're perfect every day, and that, you know, helped to inflate that characteristic in her.
Sense of self,
so.
Another thing that I did write about was when I tried to get a job, I was always threatened with, well, you need to find somewhere else to stay if I'm presenting that I want to leave the apartment. And when I replied with, okay, I will, I was kind of hit with make sure it's permanent. And every time I was told this, like, get out the house and don't come back, it was always a lie. To make sure that I stay home and that she can verbally and mentally torture me. And one thing that everyone should know is that narcissists feed off of negativity. So if you are giving them good attention, bad attention, whatever, they feed off of that, but they more feed off the bad energy or the negativity, because that's what they want to see you upset, they want to see you sad.
Yes.
So they live off of that, so they will continuously, like, say if you don't give them a reaction, which I didn't most of the time because I didn't care to, I think that's what escalated things a lot more, because she wanted me to argue with her about certain things, and she wanted me to have those, like,
to get a rise
remarks.
out of you.
Yeah, exactly. So that she could complain about something. But because I would never do that, it was hard for her to validate her reasons for being mad at me because it was hard for her to validate her reasons for being mad at me because I was never feeding into anything. So she could never be like, oh, but that one time you said this, because I didn't, and I never did. Obviously, like, there was some times where I would lose my bleep.
We know you're not perfect. Like, I know she has given her fair share. However, there were certain times where things just didn't add up. I'm like, well, how come if she went over there, she acted a certain way, which I knew she had a certain level of respect. I was like, that doesn't add up. Then she would, visit and then come home or whatever. And I was like, well, she doesn't act like that at home. Or there was also the flip side. You would act worse after coming back home. It would be like, what's going on? Or I might get like that attitude or snippiness from you, and I wasn't realizing there was a connection to it. You were stressed out and emotionally distraught as a child, probably not knowing how to handle it. Going and visiting for a weekend or a few days or something, and then coming back home, and I was like, what's going on? Why the mood change? And it wasn't early on. I'm guessing it was later on when you needed that extra validation as a teenager, especially extra validation or time or love or sometimes even just space. Sometimes you wanted that space and she wasn't willing to give it to you. She'd open the door and stuff like that.
Sorry. What she would do was I would go over and she would start an argument, and my sisters would be there as well. And because my sisters are younger, she would use that to her advantage and kind of be like, oh, don't be like your sister. Like, she would say that in front of my face, like, don't be like your sister, don't do what she's doing, she's a horrible child, I don't know how your mom deals with this, yada yada yada. And then she would also exclude me from things. So if she there was this game of snakes and ladders that they always played, and she would literally be like, oh, I'm not gonna say my sister's names, but she would call my sisters over to come play, and she'd be like, oh, you guys come play. And then I would try to join, and she's like, oh, no, something, she'll always flash it off and go out of her way to exclude me from certain things that they would do, and it just kind of made me feel like I'm not really part of the family. And I think that's, I don't know, it was just weird. Or if a situation would happen and she would blow up in front of my sisters, and I would kind of be in trouble with her or whatever, and then we would go home. She would, on our way home, say if our dad were to pick us up and my mom's at home, in that meantime she'll call my mom and give her this whole story about how I was acting or how I was or yada yada yada. And then when I come home, I'm in trouble already. I haven't even been able to tell my mom what happened.
That is so true. She would call ahead. It would be during the car ride.
Exactly.
She would be like, and guess what? It would be, and I'm like, are you serious? And it would be a really big story. It would be, okay, there's one time where I remember where your sister did something and you had defended her and she was mad. Whatever it was, that was the biggest thing, because I think that's the first time she ever got mad at both of you or whatever it was.
Yeah, it was
because it was I'm supposed to be able to say this to one person and not have another person interject, and that person's a child. How, in that old school Caribbean way, child interjected. How dare she? It was dare she do this? How dare she? And I'm going to be honest with you guys. I have been the yes man until probably just several months ago. So I was still that yes man when she would probably, with no reason whatsoever, misguidedly discipline them when they were in her presence or visiting or, whatever it was. Sometimes there'd be days off of school and she'd be like, oh, I'm going to take the girls out or whatever. I'd be like, oh, wow, okay, that's awesome. I get to take the day off and things like that. And it would be whoa, this big explosive thing has happened. And I have to match her energy, because if she's that mad, I have to be 3 times as mad because
you're the mom.
Yeah, and how dare these children get out of line? And I'm like, but they're never like this at home. I'm
we're talking about the exact same time, but I do remember a time where where the middle child, my younger sister, she wasn't giving attitude or anything. She wasn't being rude. It's just there's 2 rooms, right? And this thing that would always happen whenever we went over, we would have to decide who's going to sleep with who in whatever bed, right? And so certain weekends we'd be okay, because I usually sleep in my room at her place, and then every other weekend, my
which is my old room.
Yeah, her old room.
Yeah, she just calls it her room now because she's there more than me.
But yeah, so like we would just switch every weekend. Like one sister would sleep with me, and then they switch, and one stays in the den, whatever. We were so determined for all of us to stay in the same bed, and the thing is, we fit in the bed, and like there's no issues, no one falls off.
Yeah, I know you guys used to like that. Sometimes it was like, you know, you could talk at night and hang out. Yeah.
And we wanted to watch a movie, so I was like, okay, I have my phone, whatever, we're gonna watch a movie. But for some reason, my grandmother was so against this idea, and I don't know why.
I feel like I remember this, like specifically that time she just did not want it to happen. Anyways, keep going. I'm sorry.
Like she didn't really explain why, but her reason was like we can't all fit. And then when it actually came to it and it was time to get ready for bed, we all fit in the bed. And obviously, this proved her wrong, so she gets really upset about that. And she just comes in the room and she's just like yelling. She's like, "You guys don't listen. You guys never follow the rules. I'm calling your mom. You guys are never gonna come over here again." And the thing is, like, at this point, I'm old enough to not care. My sisters are old enough to understand what's going on and be like, okay, this woman's crazy. She says, like, everyone was like, we fit in the bed. I don't see the issue, whatever. And it's not even coming in this way where, like, it's disrespectful, but it's just like, you're blowing this out of proportion for no reason. But I don't even remember what happened, but like somehow she starts yelling at my younger sister, and then my younger sister starts crying, and then I start yelling at my grandmother.
Okay.
Because why are you making my sister cry? What's wrong with you? So I wasn't really yelling, but I was just like going off on her. I was like, why would you do that? Like, why would you, you know, make her feel this way just because we all want to share a bed? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
There was the same situation, I don't know, but it was something to do with her crying. I do remember that.
Yeah.
And she was like, and then you came over and were coddling her and showing her love, but that's not the way it works. That's not the way this world works. If I'm talking to her, I have a right to talk to her. How dare she tell me I can't talk to her? She's just a child herself. What?
Like,
and again,
what?
even from my upbringing, I wasn't raised hard because, to be honest, I didn't ask for a lot. I didn't do a lot, and I was her yes man. So I didn't get a lot. Like, I can think of like 2 times there was anything that serious in my upbringing that I was like disciplined for. She always used to call me her little handbag. She took me everywhere. And she loves to travel, so it was like everywhere she went, she'd show off her little handbag. And that's a part of narcissism too. It's like the whole like showing off, like this is, and you know, the more you're doing better. I noticed with her phone calls with family, I know I'm going off a little bit.
No, it's fine.
Her phone calls with like family would be like, you know, so-and-so's doing this, and it's just such a big deal. My daughter's doing this amazing thing and whatever, and what's your child doing? And it's like, if their child doesn't match up, you know, like it's this show-off thing. And even though it's family, and even though now I've noticed there's a few other members in the family that do have a touch of it as well. I've never lived with them to that degree, but I realize they do it to each other. So I do realize that there's something within the, I don't want to say bloodline, because it's not really necessarily something that
passes through.
Per se, but clearly they're all raised in the same situation, so it's very possible. I'm thinking of one auntie in particular where they go off and it's like, well, my daughter is the doctor, and well, my daughter's a celebrity makeup artist, and it's like okay guys, but so that feeds off of like when I'm speaking with my mother, you know, how she treated me versus her and being the next generation. And she would say things to me like, you've got to put her in line because this is not how I dealt with you. So it kind of then brings me down as if I'm doing something wrong. Right. I'm not going to raise her the way I was raised per se, but I do feel like she's panned out well so far with a strong mind and strong determination. So I think that part we got right for the most part. But unfortunately, there were things. I mean, she went through her teenage years. There were debacles and kerfuffles that happened, and we worked through that. But within my mother being a part of the situation, I have to be honest with you, it made it so much harder. And there was a portion of time where, you know, she helped me during when she was a little baby. And, you know, she'd be like, I'm going to help you. You know, I know it's hard for you as a new mother. So, you know, come over. And when you need to sleep, when you need to hang out, whatever. And I would do that. And within that time, she'd be like, what are you doing? You know, you're not making her. I would let her cry. Basically, I would let her cry. That was my thinking. And that was my philosophy, was not to abandon my child, but to let her understand that there were times that she was going to get this and times she wasn't. and my mother wasn't hearing it. She just wanted the neighbors not to hear the crying. She wanted to
There's
make
always
sure
the
the
neighbors.
world, times, you know, if I'm hanging out there, it's like I'm washing the bottles, and I'm like, I'm just gonna wash the bottles and get these things done while I'm here because I don't get to do that at home, whatever. And she was like, well, while you're doing that, the baby's crying and people will know she's crying. I'm like, that's okay, but this has to get done. And really, at the end of the day, you know, I was off on maternity and my mother's still doing her job. And I was like, well, if you're helping, then help, you know. But if not, and I'm washing a bottle or two, the baby's gonna have to cry for, you know, 5 minutes.
And it's like babies cry. Like,
Yeah,
why would that be like something that's
it
so
was
crazy?
And I'm not even saying to any extreme. It would be like a couple minutes just to go
Yeah.
to the room or something. Don't let it be like that. What are you doing? Like, everyone's gonna think, you know, we're doing something in here. The police. And she always would say the police. The police are gonna come, murder. They're gonna call murder on us. And I realized that's where I got a lot of my internal feelings about how the public perceived me.
Just the 4 lights in the back. In the city, burn your house by the track.